Good morning. Good morning. How is everybody this morning? Come on in. Come on in. We have an important case to discuss today. I'm really excited because this ties so nicely to what's going on in the Micah Francis case. So come on in. I have some news to share with you. Come on in. Come on in. Grab you a coffee. We'll just give it a few minutes. Today we're going to be talking about April Holt. Have you heard of her? Let me know in the comments. Let me know where you're listening from. I'm coming live to you from Myrtle Beach today. Thank you so much for joining me. Coffee time. Come on and join me. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about April Holt. For some reason, I had totally missed this case out of Nashville, Tennessee. The year's 2023. So this is recent. We're talking about famous positivity influence coach from TikTok. Her name was April Holt. April Holt, mother of two beautiful, beautiful children. We have her mom involved here, her husband, family of four. Come on in. We're going to talk about a TikTok couple who went toxic. All right. This is about April Holtz. I just posted a video. The link is in the description for y'all to take a look at. It has some beautiful pictures I'm talking about. This is one beautiful, sweet girl. She's lovely. She was raised in Nashville, or in just outside of Nashville in Antioch. She was homeschooled by her mom, which later caused her to feel some kind of resentment or social anxiety. Maybe she felt that, she was isolated as a kid and had a great social need. And when she found the niche on TikTok for being a positivity influencer, she just went hog wild and grabbed a hold of that opportunity and became very successful. At 29 years old, she had 200,000 followers. We're talking about April Holt. She was really an amazing woman. And from all accounts, a great mom. She seemed so happy, and by all standards, that was her niche. That was what her little program was all about. It was called it at April H on TikTok. Maybe some of you are familiar with her. I probably missed that because I'm not on TikTok. I don't spend my time on TikTok. But 200,000 people did. And her, she was just so popular, so full of little positivity and little prayers, little nice things, little fun things she did with her kids. There's lots of little dance segments and this type of thing with her and her kids and her husband. So 29 years old. Her daughter, Sierra, let me grab my little notes here, and we're going to discuss some things about the case. All right, come on in, everybody. We're discussing a very important case for a lot of good reasons. This is the case of April Holt. I did a video for you guys. The link is in the description, so you can take a look at the pictures and get a feel for this tragic story. She was a TikTok sensitivity coach. Her channel is all about overcoming adversity and manifesting your best life. She produced thousands of videos and became very popular on TikTok with a following of over 200,000 people. We're talking about April Holt. So come on in. You're going to see why this ties to the Micah Miller case or Micah Francis case. And to me, it gives us hope on that front for justice for Micah. This is a story that's very tragic. So let me go ahead and go over it with you. In late July, 29-year-old April Holt was found unresponsive in her bathroom with a plastic bag over her head, duct taped around her neck. The story is that she had got up that morning, had her usual morning routine, journaled, and had her two kids in the house. I suppose there had been some tension. She had just filed for divorce 2 weeks prior to the day that they found her unresponsive. 2 weeks. Remember, and that was the same as Micah. She was found 2 weeks after she filed for divorce. The story is that 29-year-old influencer April Holt was found unresponsive. She was categorized as a suicide, and her mom said, no way. Not only no way, but there's bruises on her body. She found out there's bruises on her neck and on her legs. There was a gash on her thigh. The way that the story went is that her husband still had ties with her as far as the TikTok path went, and was over there as he did. I believe he had his own place at this particular point. They were going through divorce 2 weeks earlier. She actually filed for divorce. It's the second time that she had filed for it. They had been together from early teens. At 18, she had a daughter, Sierra, and they got together. Then a few years later, about 6 years later, she had her son with this guy, and his name is Donovan Holt. They were just quite the celebrity couple on TikTok, always doing fun dance moves and positivity type of videos. Early in July, she actually turned 29. She had two children at the time, 11-year-old Sierra and 7-year-old Danzel. Beautiful, beautiful children. Their whole thing was manifest the life you want. She had a little pet phrase that she liked to use, which was positivity over perfection. And daily she reminded her viewers, to just be proud of the progress they were making in life, and accept themselves the way they are. She started going through some depression, and in her videos, you could see that she was spiraling because of the unseen pressure, because of the front that she was putting up for her viewers and her family. And in one particularly sad video, she was talking about, I'm going to fake it till I make it. And she was in the bathroom putting some eyelashes on, and said she had really cratered and pulled all her eyelashes off. Sometimes we do stuff like that when we're under a great amount of stress. I know I have. I've done things like just cutting my hair randomly. Sometimes we just do these crazy things because of our mental state. And it certainly showed that she was under some kind of enormous stress and pressure, which we now know where that was coming from, which was Donovan Holt, her husband. They had been previously separated. In fact, they were separated for 3 years. During that time, they continued to maintain the ties and continued to produce TikToks and put on this brave front. Well, after 3 years, they decided to reunite. Perhaps this was not a true healthy reuniting, but in fact, part of a cycle of abuse, a cycle of DV, perhaps. What I found out in my research is if you're in a DV situation and strangulation is part of it, there's about a 20% increase that you're going to die in that situation. There's no reported physical abuse that I could find between Donovan and April. But on this particular day, shortly after her 29th birthday, her husband and her went into the bathroom where they had words. The 7-year-old was home at the time, and her son, Danzel, could hear them fighting, went to the door, put his ear against the door, couldn't really understand what they were talking about, looked under the crack, could see their feet in the bathroom, and was upset, went to his room because his parents were fighting. A little while later, his dad came in and came into his room and got him dressed and fed him some breakfast. While they were in the house, he sent his son to go check on his mom, who was still in the bathroom. And the son came back. His mom was dead. This is the part of the story that just really breaks my heart, because not only did Donovan kill her, then conceal the fact that he strangled her by placing a bag over her head and duct taping the bag to her head. Perhaps she wasn't really dead when he strangled her, but he made sure she wouldn't ever come out of that bathroom alive, didn't he? But what was so cowardly is he sent his son, his own flesh and blood, the child of this woman, April, into the bathroom to find her in there. It just freaks me out. And anyway, so how the story unraveled was, after he sent his son in there, he called his mother-in-law, whose name's Jackie Robinson, or Jamie Robinson, and said something's wrong. He was in a panic state. He told her, I found April not breathing. The ambulance is on the way. I'll meet you at the hospital. And when they went there, she was still alive, but just barely holding on. 3 days later, she died. Jamie noticed that while at the hospital, Donovan was not overly distraught. He was, however, holding his head in his hands and rocking. He wasn't trying to care for April. He was just in his own little world. And she was left to make all the medical decisions. She was the one that the doctors were coming to discuss April. It seemed like Donovan didn't want any part of it. He was just there because he was obligated to be there. And after being admitted, 3 days later, she died. The police ruled this as a suicide. And it is tragic. And Mom said, no way. There's no way. First of all, she loved her kids. She wouldn't have done that to them. And secondly, they had plans. They were going to go to the movies that day. They were going to church the next day. She had plans with her mom. There was a text provided, where she said, I'm not going to be able to go to the movies with you today because Danzel's working and I don't have anybody to watch the kids, but I'll see you tomorrow, and, type of mom and daughter plans. But she never made it. She never made it to church that day, and this began a struggle. This began a real struggle for the grandmom. She not only lost her daughter and had this ruling of suicide that she felt was false, but here's the guy she believed did it, the only other person in the room able to do such a heinous act, and he was walking free. After several months, their relationship deteriorated. Donovan moved to Texas and requested that his son come and visit. Sierra didn't want to go. Danzel didn't want to go. He was crying to his grandmother and said, "Grandmama, I'll do anything to stay with you." It's so sad when kids get put in the middle of these type of situations. And for those of you just joining me, we're talking about April Holt, a very popular TikTok influencer of positivity and manifesting your best life, found dead at the age of 29, strangled. The reason we know she was strangled is because the mother got all the paperwork and began scouring all the information. And here there were bruises on her body that the police completely ignored. There were bruises around her neck. There were bruises on her arms and legs. There was even a deep gash on her inner thigh. How did these things happen if she committed the S word? It didn't make any sense. Mama just kept going through the paperwork and trying to find something to tie this murder that she believed was directly the result of Donovan's actions. And she found it. She found evidence. Besides the bruising and the obvious strangulation that occurred, she found fingerprints on the bag and on the duct tape that belonged to one person, and that was Donovan. April's fingerprints were not present. She called for a review from the community board. They opened up the case. Meanwhile, Grandma's trying to promote the case. She's trying to get some media attention on it. Not one channel picked it up. Not one social media person picked up this story. She was alone in the fight to prove that her daughter did not commit suicide, that she was murdered. And here's the murderer, the father of the children, walking free. I can only imagine her frustration as she went through this. But while the case was reopened, she was continuing to protest online and was issued a gag order for 8 years. She wasn't allowed to discuss the case. This must have been heart-wrenching for her. She went on her TikTok with a tape over her mouth that said, "A gag order has been issued for 8 years. Talk about silencing the victim. The only voice that April had left was gagged, literally, by the legal system. But she didn't stop, and the reopening of the case gave her the evidence that she was looking for. It went back to trial. She had confronted Donovan with the evidence, the fingerprints that she found, and said, "Listen, I want your confession, or we're going to go to the cold case investigators and reopen the case one way or the other." He confessed to her what had happened. They had been arguing. They went in the bathroom. He strangled her, concealed his actions by placing a bag around her neck to make it look like suicide. It's just tragic. It was just absolutely tragic. And then the fight that it ensued was devastating. Well, he did go to trial and he was indicted by a grand jury. But not for capital one, not for even first degree murder. This was for reckless homicide. Let's see. I'm trying to. There were 3 charges, and none of them are that particular. The okay, so when they came in, they arrested Donovan. They charged him, and he confessed to them the same exact story, the same exact details that he had told Jamie. He got this basically slap on the hand, and that's just not good enough. So she's fighting now to amplify the charges. This is in the court right now. She wants him to be charged and convicted of first-degree murder and child endangerment. Anybody who would send their own child to find their mother dead, is a monster without a conscience and doesn't need to be on the streets ever, in my opinion. So her name's April Holt. We're fighting for justice for April Holt, and backing up her mama Jamie as she struggles through this next course. The trial date is October 23rd. I'm going to ask that you guys pray for righteous judgment and conviction of this horrible crime, so that they can have some peace, that she can go on with her life, knowing that she did achieve justice for her slain daughter as much as you can in this earth. It's not much consolation, but it needs to happen. This reminded me in some ways of the Justice for Micah case. The fact that she had filed for divorce and then was slain. The perpetrator went for almost a year without being properly investigated at all. It shows you how the police just brushed off obvious evidence, which in this case was fingerprints of the perpetrator on the bag and on the duct tape, the only fingerprints that were on this. The bruises on her body, around her neck, her arms, her legs, the gash on her thigh. She didn't do that to herself. How did they just totally ignore this? It totally breaks my heart to know how quick law enforcement can be to close cases without totally looking into them. We're going to be a voice for the voiceless. We're going to continue to strive for justice for victims and for the families of victims, because if we don't do it, who will? It may not be that much, but I support you. I support you, and I support everybody who's seeking justice for their loved ones. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Grab a coffee if you're just coming in. I want to continue to talk about this for just a few more minutes. I'm going to go over the story one more time before we close this out. This is the story and the true life struggle of April Holt. April Holt was a happy, vibrant, and sometimes quirky online influencer who built her brand around her heart and home, overcoming adversity and manifesting your best life was the theme. She produced these shows with her husband, Donovan, and her two kids, Sierra, 11, and Danzel, who was 7 at the time. She just celebrated her 29th birthday in late July or early July of 2023 and was found unresponsive in her bathroom with a bag over her head duct taped around her neck. She was discovered by her son, who was sent into the bathroom by the perpetrator. We now know Donovan Holt. They, on TikTok, joined together. They shared their origin story of how they started off as friends, became lovers, then man and wife. They had Danzel together, and they began their career. 2 weeks prior to her death, April filed for divorce. The marriage had been rocky. In fact, they had shared all this on TikTok. They had separated at a particular time and stayed separated, although they continued to do their TikToks together. They discussed their rocky marriage. They separated for 3 years when this tragic event took place. Now, the first clue was at the hospital when mom received a call from Donovan stating that April had been found unresponsive, and she noticed there that he seemed like he was not distressed. He was rocking back and forth with his head in his hands, and her mom, Jamie, was left to make all the medical decisions. 3 days later, April passed away. She was a sensitivity coach. There's so many videos that show what a beautiful, beautiful person she was and her whole family. But it just goes to show you can't judge by appearances. Everything looked so happy. Even when they talked about their divorce, they were laughing and giggling and saying how they were best friends. Well, sometimes the waters run deep, and there's a lot more to it than what meets the eye. On Friday, July 28th, April was supposed to go to the movies to see the Barbie movie with her mom. They were planning to meet the next day because April was unable to go to the movie that night. But unfortunately, those plans never came to fruition because her son, 7-year-old Danzel, found her dead in the bathroom. Donovan called April's mom. He continued to act strangely. 3 days later, after being in the hospital, April passed away. Her TikToks revealed her depression. Just like Micah, she produced some videos stating her mental state. The case was closed. The law enforcement rejected her plea. The ruling was it was self-aliving, but Mama kept investigating. She believed that her daughter's faith and her love for her children would not allow her to commit this act. She had been separated from her husband at this point and sought a divorce, and in fact filed the divorce 2 weeks prior to be finding dead. She and Donovan announced their separation and their plans to continue walking the TicTok path together, but at the end of the day, they'd have separate lives. They said this was by mutual agreement, and that they were separating so that they could grow, heal, and elevate. They continued to maintain their friendship and decided to rekindle. Previously, they had been separated and rekindled their relationship, which probably was a real clue of the state that they were in, of a cycle of abuse. In fact, when they separated this last time, he actually had pawned his wedding ring, and when she found out, she was hurt, and she said, man, in a video, am I the villain here? You're going to just pawn your ring that quickly? But you could see there was pain beneath the surface. They argued that day, her last day in July. The son heard the argument. She woke up that morning, journaled, kissed her son, went into the bathroom and argued with Donovan. Her son, Danzel, age 7, overheard. She didn't come out of the bathroom. Danzel had gone to his bedroom. Donovan went in and got him dressed, fed him breakfast, and then sent him into the bathroom to find his mother dead. It's just horrifying. So April was in the hospital from July 21st, and on the 23rd, she was pronounced dead. The ruling was suicide. Her mom did not believe that this was the case. For almost a year, she fought until the case went back to trial, and the ruling ended up being overturned, and the cause of death was homicide. She's been fighting ever since to have the charges amplified. She is the one that found the evidence of the fingerprints on the bag and the duct tape. The police had completely ignored the evidence. Her mama began activating for, or being an activist for, DV cases and abuse. She wrote 2 books. I think she's working on her 3rd on grief and the grieving process, including a book for children, as her and her husband have had to go through so many journeys here since the death of her daughter. They have been given responsibility of the children, and she says that the children are doing as well as to be expected. They're going through they've been going through it. It's only been a year. This all happened in July of 23, and it's due to go back in October, this month, on the 23rd, to amplify the charges against the perpetrator, Donovan Holt. So we're going to pray that justice is done. I thank you guys for joining me today. Y'all have a beautiful day. Watch my full-length video on this topic, as we are now a voice for the voiceless. Thank you for joining me. Love you guys. Take care.